Good evening and welcome to News Center Weekend. I'm Shannon Dietz.
And I'm Rob Coles. The winner of the distinguished Sagamore of the Wabash Award for 2002 is a Ball State professor. The award is given to an individual who has given an outstanding service to the state or governor. Representative Tiny Adams presented Robert Hayes with the award on Thursday on the second floor of Teachers College for his help in creating the Critical Incident Stress Response Team for East Central Indiana. The group of mental health and emergency workers counsels other emergency workers after they are confronted with stressful situations on the job.
For 10 months, the Commissioner's Task Force has been dealing with the banning smoking in Delaware County restaurants, but cannot agree on the definition of the word restaurant. Scotty's Brewhouse conducted a poll on their website asking whether the Muncie restaurant should be smoke-free. There were 132 votes cast last week. 58% want restaurants to be smoke-free, 12% want to offer smoking and non-smoking sections, 17% want all smoking, and 12% had no opinion. More progress is being made every time the committee meets, but they are still far from a resolution.
Wes Klein is here with our first forecast.
Yeah, it was a gorgeous day today. Is it going to continue throughout the week?
Yes, Shannon and Rob, it was a really pretty nice weekend outside, even though we had a little cooler temperatures than what we were supposed to have this time of the year. But tonight, the first forecast is we're going to have mostly cloudy skies. We're going to have that chance of rain coming in late with a low temperature around 49. And coming up, I'll have the details on how much rain we're going to receive in my forecast.
Students are safe after a dorm fire at Depauw University. Officials evacuated around 330 students from not only the dormitory that the blaze started in, but the two dorms next to it as well. The fire caused the fourth floor of Rector Hall to collapse, but also burned through the building's roof. The firefighters from 4 different departments helped with the fire. 2 firefighters were hurt and taken to the hospital for minor injuries. University officials are presently trying to find rooms to place students until the dorms are repaired.
Overcrowded prisons are plaguing Indiana counties despite statewide efforts to prevent it. J. Stephen Smith, a Taylor University criminologist, says that in the past 12 years, 52 counties have built new jails or expanded their facilities. Smith also said that the demands for cells is often undersized to begin with due to politician reluctance to ask for more money from taxpayers. Also, inmate population is getting bigger at a rate faster than the expansion of cells is growing. Hoosiers won't be seeing any more commercials for psychic Miss Cleo.
At least not for a while, anyway. The Indiana Attorney General's office reached an agreement Friday with Miss Cleo's parent company. Indiana filed a lawsuit against Miss Cleo citing blatant and deceptive advertising. Under the agreement reached Friday, the Psychic Network will no longer advertise in Indiana unless it gives the Attorney General's office 5 days' notice. The suit also seeks restitution for complaints filed against Miss Cleo. Indiana has received more than 100 complaints about Miss Cleo and her psychic phone line. Still ahead tonight, President Bush calls for Israeli forces to pull back from the West Bank. And British Prime Minister Tony Blair had a stern warning for Saddam Hussein. His warning coming up. You're watching News Center Sunday at 9:30. To the Middle East, the West Bank town of Jenin was under attack when an Israeli helicopter fired into a refugee camp today. 3 Israeli soldiers, along with several Palestinians, were killed in the attack. Also, heavy fighting occurred in the northern West Bank town of Nablus, where Israeli tanks and helicopters closed in on Palestinian targets. Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon told sources he would expedite an end to the Israeli offensive in the West Bank, but a specific time period has not yet been set. President Bush called Sharon on Saturday and asked him to withdraw without delay, and Secretary of State Colin Powell left for the Middle East today. President Bush's national security advisor says that Bush believes the situation in the Middle East has reached a tipping point. Bush expects Arab leaders to do their part to remove the threat of terrorism. Bush is sending Secretary of State Colin Powell to the Middle East to try to get the peace progress back on track. British Prime Minister Tony Blair puts new demands on Saddam Hussein. In a speech delivered at Bush Presidential Library in College Station, Texas, Blair said Hussein must give weapons inspectors access to inspect any time and any place that the international community demands. Blair stayed at President Bush's Texas ranch, where the two discussed choices to take in dealing with Iraq. Blair declared in his speech that military steps should be taken if need be, but there won't be any hasty actions. Israelis living along the Lebanese border are being ordered to bomb shelters as cross-border clashes between the two countries continue. Israel says guerrillas opened fire on several Israeli villages and army bases from Lebanon's side of the border. Lebanese police have arrested several militant Palestinians in recent days and accused them of firing across the border. Wind in southern Florida may postpone the launch of Space Shuttle Atlantis for a second time. The first delay of Atlantis was caused by a ruptured fuel line last Thursday, and tomorrow's launch may be affected by the 35-mile-per-hour wind expected in Florida. The shuttle is taking a 44-foot girder that will form the foundation for solar wings and radiators to bring power to new laboratories planned for the station. Peanut butter and other treats will also be taken up at the request of the space station residents. According to U.S. Space Command, pieces of a satellite were expected to fall back to Earth over the weekend.
The satellite never made it into its intended orbit and has been space junk for the past 6 years.
CNN's Ann Kellen has more about this mission and other memorable spacecraft that fell to Earth.
It all looked so good 6 years ago.
Quiet in the control room, please.
NASA's High Energy Transient Experiment, nicknamed HETE, piggybacked to a Pegasus rocket, aiming to learn more about how the universe started.
3, 2, 1.
The first and second stages of separation went off without a hitch.
And Pegasus is away.
Once out of sight, the third stage didn't attach.
And we appear to have a problem in the electrical system.
HETE never reached its proper orbit, never did its intended job to study gamma ray bursts, mysterious bursts of energy that occur throughout space. Scientists think they will one day help explain the origin of the universe.
Skylab, we're reading you loud and clear.
It's not the only spacecraft to fall uncontrollably to Earth. Remember Skylab, July 1979. It made its final plunge. Much bigger than HETE, the 200,000-pound Skylab was a giant worry.
People were talking about Chicken Little, the sky's falling.
Skylab had no engines to steer its re-entry. Despite NASA's efforts to get it to tumble, it overshot the Atlantic Ocean and scattered in pieces over the outback of Western Australia. No one was hurt. Since then, engines have been added to guide large spacecrafts to more controlled re-entries, like the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory 2 years ago.
We do not predict we'll survive another orbit.
Mission controllers fired the thrusters on board, pushing it to a fatally low orbit, with pieces breaking apart, eventually falling into the Pacific Ocean. And the Russian space station Mir, despite its last days orbiting above populated areas of the world, it hit its landing mark right on, into the Pacific, with a fiery light show to boot. Ann Kellen, CNN, Atlanta.
Well, Wes, it was pretty nice this weekend, but how long is that going to last?
Yeah, I heard it's supposed to rain tomorrow. Is that true?
Yes, we had little chilly temperatures out, and the sun was shining, but there's going to be some changes tomorrow. As it's going to look like it's going to be a messy day, and I'll have details after the break with my forecast. Good evening, everyone. Today's high was 61 degrees. Today's low was 49. The normal low around 38 degrees, and the sunrise was 6:08 this morning, and the sunset tonight is at 7:16 p.m. Around the region today, the lows were in the mid to upper 40s here in central to northern part of the state. As South Bend hit 46, here in Muncie it was 49, as well as in Indianapolis, and down towards the Ohio River, Evansville had 53, and Terre Haute had a temperature of 51. Currently outside, mostly cloudy skies, the temperature of 55, and that south wind is around 10 miles per hour. Satellite image shows here a thick area of cloudiness, which is going to progress right into our region here tonight, and that's going to give us that shot of rain late after midnight. As you can see here on the state locally, the clouds are going to be moving in, and that rain will become heavy towards tomorrow afternoon. Right now, it's out here in Iowa and southern Missouri, and that will be pushing up this region up into us, as it's going to give us a messy day pretty much tomorrow. Here locally, you can see up around the Gary, South Bend area, there's some light rain happening up there, as most of the rain in Missouri will be progressing our way later tonight and into tomorrow. The surface map right here shows this area of heavy to moderate rain down here in southern Missouri and Arkansas, and as I said, that there's a warm front sitting over here that's giving us the warm temperatures, and that's going to progress to move up, and then as it moves through, it's going to give us that rain chance tomorrow. Typically, now tomorrow it's going to we're going to have a quarter to a half inch of rain after midnight tonight, and then maybe a half inch to an inch by tomorrow. Here's tonight's lows. You can see calling for around 49 degrees with a warmer area down here in Evansville by 50. And as tonight, as I was saying, that rain will be moving in late, and it's going to give us that shot of rain in the morning, as you're going to need those umbrellas. And then tomorrow here on the surface map, that cold front, as it pushes through, the surface pressure, low pressure, will be pumping the moisture up through our area, giving us that chance of rain most through the day tomorrow and Tuesday. So it doesn't look like it's going to be really a sunny week as predicted. Precipitation amounts here are a ½ inch to an inch of rainfall here with this system tomorrow as the totals progress into Tuesday, or it'll get a little bit bigger than an inch. Tomorrow morning, you can see we'll have that little rain shower and partly cloudy skies at that temperature of 52, so make sure to grab the rain jackets or umbrellas. Tomorrow's highs, we will be a little bit mild, a lot milder for this time of the year as it warming up into spring, as we're going to hit 60 degrees tomorrow. A lot warmer down here to the south at 70s, and tomorrow it'll be highs of 50s up north in Illinois. So tomorrow we have that occasional rain, possibly a shot of thunder. The high is 60 degrees, that south wind at 20 miles per hour. And the 3-day forecast, you can see Tuesday we're going to have rain and thunderstorms mostly through the day at the high of 61. And mostly cloudy to cloudy skies will be on tap for Sunday and Monday, with Sunday at high temperature of 55 and Monday will hit 61. So it doesn't look like it's going to be too much of a good week with the rainfall coming in for the next couple days.
It looks like April showers are finally on their way.
Yeah, but actually it's better than snow. So.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Wes.
Thank you.
Now, basketball season is over, but what is left?
Well, basketball is over, but of course my favorite personal sport is baseball, and I'll have a lot of that and so much more after the break, so stay tuned. We're covering all of the bases today in sports, but first we send it to Dan McGowan with sports headlines. Dan?
Thanks, Joe. Thursday, America got a glimpse into the future of players who will leave college early. The McDonald's High School All-American game displayed the talents of future stars from across the country. Indiana's own Shauna Zalman was part of the inaugural women's squad and won the three-point shootout. If you are Phil Mickelson right now, your chances of winning the Bell South Classic are about as likely as Ken Griffey Jr.'s leg holding up. By the way, Griff was just put on the disabled list again after dislocating his knee in a rundown against Montreal. He will not make the upcoming Cincinnati road trip to Pittsburgh this week. In business's version of The Odd Couple, wealthy Washington Redskins owner Daniel Snyder is teaming up with BET owner Robert L. Johnson in hopes of bringing a Major League Baseball team to D.C. And now Tom Kazarowski has BSU baseball. Tom?
Well, the Cards looking for win number 7 in a row at home and a 4-game sweep against the Toledo Rockets. Let's head out to Ball Diamond for the highlights. Pick it up in the bottom of the 4th. Scott French gets just enough of this offering, bloops it just over the third baseman's head, just falls in. He pulls up, decides to put on the brakes, comes back to first. Then after a Paul Henry walk, Adam Metzler reaching out and touching somebody. He takes him deep to center. That goes yard. Cards blow it open. They're up 9-3 on Metzler's 7th of the year. Then a little bit later, after a Matt Deckman single and a Doug Boone walk, Keel Holman rips a single to left. That brings home Matt Deckman. Cards blow it open 10-3. They go on to win it by the final of 16-6 is your final. Cards blow this one open. 7-0 at home this year. Adam Metzler with a career day, 3 for 4, 3-run homer, and 4 RBIs. Cards looking to extend that home winning streak next week. Nick, now take a look at volleyball for us.
Thanks, Tom. The Ball State Volley Cards took care of the Clark Crusaders in 3 straight games last night. Amitai Sasson and Yari Delgado led the Cardinal attack with 9 kills. Josh Zeidema had 10 digs, and Keith Schuntzel had 40 assists. The Cardinals lost a 5-game heartbreaker to Loyola. Yari Delgado led 5 Cardinals in double-digit kills with 20. Kyle Wendell, Paul Fassauer, and Matt Denmark had 13 kills each. The Cards are 18-7 on the season and 12-2 in the MIVA. They will return home for 2 games Friday against Mercyhurst and Saturday against Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne. Now to Ball State tennis. The women's tennis team was victorious Saturday, pummeling Toledo 5-2. The Cards swept the doubles competition and won 4 of 6 singles matches. With the win, Ball State improves to 10-5 overall, 2-3 in the MAC. The team will host Miami Friday at 1 p.m. Joe, back to you.
Thanks, Nick. The NCAA wants to make sure Final Four tickets are sold fair and square for 2003. A little over 14,000 tickets were available this year to the public, and they were distributed among 7,500 lottery winners. Prices for courtside seats reached a staggering $7,000 this year. Lottery winners will not be allowed to purchase tickets again if they are found to have scalped their tickets for more than face value. Talk about a home field advantage. Last night, the Minnesota Golden Gophers won their first NCAA hockey championship since 1979. The Gophers defeated Maine 4-3 in front of a record crowd of 19,324 in St. Paul, Minnesota. Grant Patolny scored on a power play with less than 3 minutes left in overtime to end the Black Bears' run. Bob Knight is back home again in Indiana. The Hoosier legend was in Indianapolis last night and Bloomington today to sign his autobiography, Knight, My Story. More than 3,000 people stood in line for as long as 9 hours to see Coach Knight in downtown Indy. An estimated crowd of 2,000 were at Borders bookstores stretching more than 2 city blocks. Former Bloomington North center Sean May was named Indiana's Mr. Basketball on Saturday. In June, May will wear the coveted #1 jersey in the Indiana-Kentucky All-Star Game. May received 105 of 290 media votes. He averaged just over 17 points and 10 rebounds per game in high school. He was the son of former IU standout Scott May, and he played in the McDonald's All-American game on Thursday night. Sean signed with the University of North Carolina. Dan McGowan has a preview of the huge Pacers game tonight. Dan?
Thanks, Joe. The Indiana Pacers attempt to stay afloat and retain sole possession of 8th place in the Eastern Conference when they travel to the Air Canada Center on Sunday. At 37-38, Indiana and Toronto enter the contest tied for the 8th and final playoff spot in the East with 7 games remaining. The teams conclude their season series on Wednesday at Indiana. Toronto has won 6 straight meetings against Indiana, including a 113-100 triumph at the Air Canada Center on November 4th and a 102-90 victory at Conseco Fieldhouse on December 19th. Back to you, Joe.
The acquisitions of sluggers like Mo Vaughn and Jeremy Burnitz brought new offensive power to the New York Mets, and no one knew that it would bring this much power. Last night, the Braves and Mets were tied 2-2 going into the 9th inning in Atlanta, and then the floodgates opened. Braves veteran closer John Smoltz was blown up for 8 of the Mets' 9 runs in the Mets' half of the 9th inning. It was the most runs ever that the New York team had ever scored in the 9th inning. And with the effects of last September's terrorist attacks still on the minds of professional sporting world, security measures at nearly all stadiums have increased dramatically. But the latest effort to increase security in Wrigley Field's bleacher section does not sit too well with the residents of Wrigley Field. John Dempsey has more from Chicago's North Side.
Erected a wall between themselves and the community.
They're acting in a very childlike fashion. It's more one of those, we're taking our bat and ball and going home in the middle of the game.
Wrigleyville neighbors aren't holding back their feelings about what they say is the Tribune Company's latest brushback pitch to the neighborhood. The installation of these tarps along the bleacher fences. Tarps that partially obscure the playing field from these rooftop decks across the street. Rooftop deck owner Jim Murphy of Murphy's Bleachers believes it's a silly attempt to tweak owners such as himself because the tarps don't really obscure the view that much.
Right now, the tarps only block out maybe about 5% of the view. It's not that great of a deal, but it's more of a symbolic thing that the Cubs are doing.
Many believe what is really behind this whole thing is the Cubs' plan to expand the bleachers over the sidewalks of Waveland and Sheffield Avenues. Back on March 6th, Cubs president Mark McGuire told a packed community meeting that the plan is good for the Cubs and good for the neighborhood.
I think it creates a much more open feeling out there. Our architect, landscape architect, and the idea of taking the inside of the park and turning it to the outside with ivy and bricks and brick sidewalk I think people are reacting very positively to that.
However, many neighbors strongly disagree with that statement. And with a plan, they say, would add 2,000 fans to the already congested neighborhood.
That's 2,000 people. That's a 70% increase in pedestrian traffic on that corner. You have movement mayhem. And all this is going to spill out onto the residential streets that immediately surround Wrigley Field.
City Hall is blocking the Cubs plan because of neighborhood opposition, and so neighborhood activists believe this is the Tribune Company's way of responding.
Seems rather childish at this point.
It just goes to show that they're not communicating with the community, that they really don't want to. All they're concerned about is what goes on within their walls. And now they've made a point to build that wall even higher.
We apologize for the technical difficulties we just had, but stay tuned to NewsCenter at 9:30 and we'll have your weather recap coming up next.
The weather recap again for tomorrow will be a messy and rainy day with occasional thunder could be possible at the high around 60. And that 3-day, well, Tuesday will be rain and thunderstorms likely with the temperature of 61, and Wednesday and Thursday will be mostly cloudy skies.
Thanks for joining us for NewsCenter Weekend. I'm Shannon Dietz.
And I'm Rob Coles. Be sure to join us tomorrow for NewsCenter at 5:30. Have a nice evening.